Alright guys, so I want to talk to you about something that is moving faster than most people realize, and when this changes, everything changes. We just entered the new era of the Federal Reserve Chair, Kevin Warsh, and he's taking over. And the way that this guy thinks about money, interest rates, and the entire financial system is fundamentally different from what we've been used to for the past several years. And guys, if you don't understand what's about to shift and why it matters, you could be caught completely off guard by what comes next for your investments, your mortgages, your savings, all of it. Now, in case you're new around here, my name is Nima and welcome to the channel. I'm a corporate executive with over 15 years of experience in both sales and finance. My videos break down complex financial concepts to help you on your financial journey, whether you're just starting out or if you're already a seasoned pro. So guys, let's jump into today's topic, which is the next Fed chair is about to change everything. Now guys, I need you to stay with me all the way to the end of this video because I'm going to give you specific takeaways at the end about what this actually means for your money and what you should be thinking about doing right now. The Fed is one of the most powerful institutions on the planet, and a leadership change at the top is not something that you want to sleep on. So guys, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so let's start with the basics, because I think a lot of people have a vague sense of what the Fed actually does without fully understanding it directly and how it affects their daily financial life. So, right off the bat, Jerome Powell's term as chairman of the Federal Reserve has just ended, and President Trump has nominated a man named Kevin Warsh to replace him. Now, a Fed chair doesn't just get handed the job. They have to be confirmed by the Senate with a simple majority vote of 51 votes, and that process has already moved forward faster than what a lot of people may have thought. There was a brief concern about a DOJ ethics investigation into Powell that could have complicated things, but that investigation was dropped, which cleared a major roadblock and helped Warsh already move in. So, you may be wondering, who is Kevin Warsh? Well guys, he is not new to this world at all. He's been inside the Federal Reserve before, he comes from financial markets and understands Wall Street and monetary policy at a very deep level. But here's the most important thing to understand about him. The way he thinks about the Fed's role in the economy is significantly different from what Jerome Powell has been doing this entire time, and that difference is going to affect stocks, real estate, bonds, crypto, and basically every financial asset that you own or care about. Most people think the Fed is just about interest rates, but the Fed controls the cost of money, the flow of money, and indirectly the direction of every major asset class in this economy. And that policy follows the thinking of whoever is sitting in the chair. Okay? So, to understand what Kevin Warsh is going to do differently, you need to understand what Jerome Powell did. And this is more specifically during the time of the pandemic, because that's exactly the playbook Warsh wants to move away from. Guys, when COVID hit, everything stopped. Nobody was spending money, businesses were shutting down, banks got overly cautious, and money essentially stopped moving through the economy. And when money stops moving in America, the whole system is in serious trouble. So, what did Powell's Fed do? Well, they created money out of thin air, and I mean that literally. And then what they did from there is they used it to buy bonds from banks, which did two things at once. It gave banks more cash to lend, and it injected massive amounts of liquidity directly into the economy. And at the same time, the Fed dropped interest rates to near 0%, making borrowing almost free. That combination was designed to get people spending again, and get banks lending again, and keep the economic engine running. And it worked in the short term. But the long-term result of all of that was the incredibly high inflation that we saw going into 2022, and the Fed's balance sheet ballooned from around $4 trillion before the pandemic to nearly $9 trillion in just a year or two. All of those bonds that were bought with printed money got added to the Fed's balance sheet as assets, and here's the wild part, unlike a normal loan, those bonds don't have to be paid back. The Fed just lets them roll off the balance sheet over time. That whole process is called quantitative easing, or QE. And Kevin Warsh has come out repeatedly and publicly to say that he is not a fan of doing that at that scale again. Now guys, before I dive into more details of the next Fed chair and how it's about to change everything, if you're gaining any value from this video already, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. Your support helps this channel grow, so please show some love by smashing that like button, commenting down below, and subscribing. Alright, now let's discuss the next segment. Okay guys, so here's the part that I really want you to pay attention to, because this is where most investors are going to get it wrong. Kevin Warsh is expected to run what's being called a monetary barbell strategy. And let me break that down in plain English so that you can understand what it really means and why it's important to this concept. So, on one side of the barbell, Warsh is probably going to lower interest rates, making it cheaper to borrow money. And on the surface, that sounds great, right? Lower rates are good for stocks, good for real estate, good for business growth, good for anyone carrying debt. That's the part that people, like myself, would generally celebrate. But with that being said, here is the other side of that same barbell that most people are completely missing. Warsh wants a much tighter control of the Fed's balance sheet. He doesn't believe in aggressive money printing. He doesn't believe in the Fed just flooding the system with trillions of dollars of created money. He actually wants to reduce the Fed's balance sheet, not grow it. In simpler terms, what Warsh appears to believe is that the Fed should step back and let private markets, things like banks, investment firms, institutions, investors, handling provided liquidity to the economy instead of the government doing it. So you get cheaper borrowing on one side, but significantly less money printing on the other. That is a very different environment from what we've had so far, and the market is going to have to adjust to it. So, with all of that being said, there's a fascinating wild card in Warsh's thinking. He believes that AI could increase productivity enough to allow real economic growth without causing inflation, because AI-driven efficiency reduces costs in ways that human labor traditionally could not. And guys, if he's right about that, it could be a genuinely new era for the economy. So, with all of that said, I want to be very balanced here, because not everyone agrees with Kevin Warsh's approach, and that disagreement is already showing up publicly in ways that are worth paying attention to. Just recently, Senator Elizabeth Warren grilled him in congressional hearings, questioning whether he would maintain the Fed's independence from the White House, pressing him on his actual net worth, and challenging his overall approach to monetary policy. And guys, that kind of pushback matters because a Fed chair who faces political pressure from both sides, from the White House wanting lower rates and from his Congress questioning his independence, is a Fed chair who has to navigate a very complicated political environment on top of an already complicated economic one. And then again, guys, on top of all of that, Warsh may also face some resistance from within the Fed itself, specifically other members of the Federal Open Market Committee, the group that votes on interest rates 8 times a year. So normally the Fed chair's view sets the direction and the committee follows. But there are already signs that some FOMC members are not fully aligned with where Warsh wants to take things. And the broader risk of his approach is real. Less money printing and tighter balance sheet control means the economy has less of a safety net from the Fed if things get rough. And as you probably already know it, markets have been conditioned for over a decade to expect the Fed to step in aggressively whenever things go wrong, and if Warsh pulls that expectation away, then the adjustment period could be bumpy, volatile, and uncomfortable for investors who aren't prepared for it. So guys, let me bring this entire video together, and I want you to have some practical takeaways, because understanding what's happening is only valuable if you know what to do with this information. So here's what I think this all means for your money. First, rates are likely coming down, possibly later this year, and this is genuinely good news for anyone carrying variable debt, anyone looking to refinance a mortgage, and anyone in growth-oriented investments like stocks and real estate. Lower rates are a real tailwind, and you want to be positioned to benefit from them. Second, the era of the Fed flooding the system with printed money the way that it did during the pandemic is likely over under Warsh, which means that the market is going to have to find its legs more on its own without that safety net. That doesn't mean that the market stops going up, but it does mean that the path up could be bumpier and more volatile than we've gotten used to. Third, because Warsh wants private markets to provide liquidity instead of the Fed, the institutions, banks, and investment firms are going to have more influence over the flow of the money in the market than they have in years. And that shift in powers for how assets are priced and where opportunities show up is going to change. And fourth, keep dollar cost averaging and stick to your investment plan. Pay close attention to what's happening at the macro level right now because we are genuinely entering a transition period where the rules of money are shifting. When the systems change, guys, the opportunities change too. And the people who understand what's happening are always better positioned than the ones who are just chasing headlines. So with that being said, I would like to thank you for watching this video all the way through. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next video. I'm dropping information every other day or even almost every day on new videos that I'm putting on this channel here. Make sure that you drop a comment down below and tell me, what do you think about Kevin Warsh taking over the Fed? Again, thank you for watching this video all the way through. I'll see you guys in the next video.